"You're not going to believe what I just saw," Tim said, his voice trembling slightly as he recounted his strange evening. "What happened?" Jenny leaned in, her curiosity piqued by the unusual tone in her friend's voice. "It was this." This ghost. Tim's eyes darted around the room, as if he was afraid of being overheard. A ghost. Jenny's skepticism was palpable. "Come on, Tim, you know I don't go for that kind of stuff." Tim took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. "Look, I know how it sounds, but I swear, it was real. It was in my aunt's house." The two friends sat in the dimly lit coffee shop, the only customers at this late hour. Jenny stirred her coffee absently, watching Tim as he recounted his eerie encounter. His story began to unravel, weaving a web of shadows around them. Tim had gone to clean out his aunt's place after she passed away. It was a large old house that had been in the family for generations. The moment he stepped inside, he felt a coldness that seemed to seep into his bones. He'd brushed it off as his imagination playing tricks on him, but as the hours ticked by, the feeling grew stronger. He'd been sorting through boxes in the attic when he first heard a soft, mournful cry that seemed to echo through the dusty rafters. He froze, listening intently. The sound grew closer until it was right beside him, but there was nothing to be seen. Only the faintest hint of a figure, a shimmer in the corner of his eye that vanished when he turned to look. The house was filled with his aunt's things, her life's memories packed into every corner. As Tim worked, he couldn't help but feel like he was disturbing something sacred. The air grew thick with an unseen presence, and the temperature plummeted. He tried to ignore it, to keep his focus on the task at hand, but the whispers grew louder. "What did the ghost look like?" Jenny asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. Tim hesitated, trying to find the right words. "It was indistinct, like a blur. But I could make out the shape of a woman, dressed in what looked like a wedding gown, and her eyes. They were so sad." Jenny's hand hovered over her mouth, a look of horror slowly spreading across her face. What did it want? "It didn't speak," Tim said, his voice barely above a murmur. "But it was. Searching for something. It was as if it was lost and couldn't find its way out." The silence between them grew heavier, filled with unspoken questions and fears. The clock on the wall ticked away, each second stretching into an eternity as the coffee shop lights flickered ominously. "I have to go back," Tim said finally. "There's something in that house that needs to be found." Jenny searched his face, looking for some sign that this was all just a tall tale, but all she saw was cold, hard truth. "Okay," she said, her voice unsteady. "But promise me, you'll be careful." Tim nodded solemnly. "I will. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm being drawn into something much larger than myself, something that's been hidden for a very long time." With that, he took a final sip of his now cold coffee and stood to leave. Jenny watched him go, her thoughts racing with images of the spectral bride and the secrets she might hold. As the door closed behind him, she couldn't shake the chill that had settled into her bones. The house waited, its walls echoing with the whispers of the past. Tim knew he had to go back, to uncover the truth about the ghost and maybe, just maybe, find peace for himself along the way. But as he drove down the dark, winding road leading to the old family home, he couldn't help but wonder if he was ready for the secrets that lay in wait within its haunted halls. He parked his car in front of the house, the headlights casting long shadows that danced on the overgrown lawn. The moon hung low in the sky, a pale sentinel watching over the quiet street. Tim took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. As he climbed the creaking porch steps, the chill in the air grew more intense, almost tangible. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of dust and old memories. He flicked on the lights, their flickering glow pushing back the shadows but not dispelling the sense of unease. The whispers grew more insistent, beckoning him deeper into the house. He followed them, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The stairs to the attic groaned under his weight, each step a silent protest against his intrusion. The door at the top of the stairs stood ajar, a gaping mouth leading to the room of his encounter. He hesitated for a moment before pushing it open, the cold rushing out like a gust of wind. The attic was unchanged from his last visit, a sea of cardboard boxes and forgotten knickknacks. But something was different. There, In the center of the room sat a single trunk, its aged leather gleaming in the moonlight that streamed through the small window. It was new, or at least it hadn't been there before. Tim approached the trunk, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch the cold metal latch. He felt a strange pull, as if the ghostly bride were urging him to open it. With a final deep breath, he did. The lid creaked open, revealing a treasure trove of old photographs, yellowed letters, and a tattered wedding dress. The whispers grew louder, forming into words he could almost understand. He sifted through the contents, piecing together a story of love and loss, of a bride who had never made it to the altar. His heart ached for her, for the sorrow she carried through the years. He knew he had to find out what had happened, to give her peace or risk becoming part of her eternal search. The last item he found was a small, velvet-covered box. Inside, a locket glinted in the moon's glow. He opened it, and there she was, his aunt, young and beautiful, smiling next to a man he'd never seen before. Tim felt a jolt of recognition, a connection to the ghostly figure that had haunted him. The whispers grew to a crescendo, the room spinning around him. He knew he was close to the truth, but it was slipping through his fingers like sand. He had to find out more, had to uncover the story behind the locket and the lost love it represented. As the box slipped from his grasp, the whispers grew louder still, and the air grew colder. The room was alive with the presence of the spectral bride, her eyes now filled with desperation. The house trembled around him, a silent scream trapped within its walls. Tim knew he had to leave, to find answers before it was too late. He stumbled down the stairs, the whispers following him like a chilling lullaby. The front door slammed shut behind him, leaving him standing on the porch with the locket in hand. The night was quiet once more, the whispers silenced. But he knew they would return, that the ghostly bride would not rest until her story was told. And as he drove away, the house loomed in his rearview mirror, watching him, waiting for him to come back. The mystery had only just begun, and he was already entwined in its icy embrace. Tim couldn't shake the feeling that the locket held the key to the haunting. The locket was old, the metal tarnished, but the picture inside remained vivid, a stark reminder of a love that had never seen the light of a new day. He had to find out who this man was, what had happened to him, and why the ghostly bride remained trapped in the house, forever searching. His aunt had never spoken of a lost love, never hinted at a secret so dark and painful that it had manifested into a specter. Determined, Tim turned his car around and headed to the local library, where the town's archives held the answers to its long-forgotten past. The librarian, a friendly woman with a knowing smile, helped him dig through dusty records and newspaper clippings until he found what he was looking for. The man in the photo was named Charles. He had been the town's golden boy, set to marry the most beautiful girl, his aunt. But the day of the wedding, he'd vanished without a trace, leaving behind a broken heart and a trail of whispers that had grown into local legend. The articles spoke of foul play and curses, but there was never any evidence to support the wild claims. The case went cold, and the town moved on, leaving the memory of the tragic love behind. Tim felt a heavy weight settle in his stomach. He had to find out what had really happened to Charles. The thought of the ghostly bride wandering the house, forever searching for her lost love, was unbearable. He decided to visit the old church where the wedding was supposed to take place, hoping it might offer some clues or, perhaps, a way to lay her spirit to rest. The church was small, its stone walls blackened by time and neglect. The cemetery surrounding it was overgrown, the headstones leaning like drunken sentinels. He felt the same chill here that he had in the house, the air thick with sorrow. He searched the graveyard, his eyes scanning each name for any sign of Charles. But there was none. The only clue was a single, fresh bouquet of flowers laid at the base of a headstone that read Elizabeth, his aunt's name. The whispers grew faint, and Tim knew the ghost was nearby. He approached the headstone, feeling the cold embrace of the grave beneath his feet. What happened to him, he whispered into the night, his voice carrying on the chilly wind. The response was immediate, a gust of cold air that seemed to emanate from the ground. The whispers grew into a chilling moan, the name Charles echoing through the cemetery. Tim's heart raced as he realized the ghost had heard him, that she was trying to communicate. He took the locket from his pocket, holding it tight. "I'll find out," he vowed, his breath misting in the cold. "I'll find out what happened to him, and I'll set you free." The wind died down, and the whispers stopped. For the first time since he'd found the locket, Tim felt a sense of peace. He knew he was on the right path. With renewed determination, he turned to leave the graveyard, the moon casting long shadows behind him. The house would have to wait. His quest had just begun. Tim couldn't shake the feeling that the locket held the key to the haunting. As he drove away from the cemetery, the image of the smiling couple inside the locket haunted him. The cold metal felt heavy in his pocket, a weight of unspoken secrets. His determination to uncover the truth about Charles and his aunt only deepened. The idea of her ghost wandering the empty halls of their old home, forever searching for her lost love, gnawed at him. What had happened to Charles on that fateful day? Would he find answers, or would the search only lead him deeper into the darkness? Arriving back at the house, he steeled himself for what lay ahead. The moon hung high in the sky, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. He felt an electric energy in the air, as if the house itself was alive, waiting for him to uncover its secrets. As Tim climbed the creaking stairs to the attic, the whispers enveloped him once more. They swirled around him, urging him to listen, to seek the truth hidden within the walls. He reached the attic door, pushing it open with a sense of foreboding. The trunk sat there, its presence more ominous than before. He opened it again, but this time the contents seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. As he reached for the locket, a sudden gust of wind swept through the attic, sending papers flying and rattling the boxes. "Help me," a voice echoed, barely more than a whisper. Tim's heart raced. He felt the ghostly presence of the bride beside him, her sorrow palpable. But instead of fear, he felt an overwhelming sense of compassion. He was being drawn into her story, entwined with her pain and longing. "Tell me what you need," he whispered, desperate for a connection, for a sign that he could help her. But the answer eluded him, swirling just out of reach. The shadows deepened, the whispers transformed into a cacophony, and Tim realized he was standing on the precipice of something much larger than he had anticipated. In that moment, he felt the ground shift beneath him, not physically, but emotionally, a realization that he was not merely an observer but part of a long-forgotten tragedy. The air grew thick, and Tim could sense the impending chaos, the unresolved story that tied them all together. With a deep breath, he gripped the locket tightly and closed his eyes. "I'll find out what happened," he vowed, his voice steady amidst the turmoil. When he opened his eyes, the attic felt different. Shadows danced more wildly, the air crackled with energy, and he saw the ghostly bride, her form shifting between sadness and urgency. Tim took a step forward, drawn to her, and in that instant he knew he was crossing a threshold. He could either uncover the dark truth that lay ahead or become another lost soul, forever intertwined in the echoes of the past. The choice loomed before him, as uncertain as the whispers that filled the room. As he moved toward her, the attic flickered in and out of focus, reality blending with the spectral world. The house itself seemed to breathe, alive with the weight of untold stories. And in that moment, Tim understood that he could never truly leave.